All right, Billy. It really comes down to a couple things, and one of them can't be discovered on the internet or in any forum. Most of these answers are like when Billy Joel said, "You can't get the sound from a story in a magazine aimed at your average teen." Now, I've owned almost every single amp mentioned in the responses that you've gotten so far, the exception of the JMD. Um, so I'll speak to each individually. Now, until COVID hit, I was a regularly gigging musician, and I still do open mics regularly. So I do that with full bands, solo, and groups of people from 3 to 6. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of where I come from. So if you're looking for a decent play-at-home practice amp that you can play without a bunch of investment in pedals, get a modeling amp. Now, the Katana doesn't really fit into the modeling amp thing, so there's a reason I'm not going to mention it right here. But there's the Fender GTX, there's a Marshall Code, there's the Blackstar, and there's a whole bunch of them. They pretty much do all the same things for metal and hard rock at the levels of a bedroom. You're not going to really see a big, huge difference or a spike in what you get from these things. So don't have the expectation that the Fender GTX and the Marshall Code are going to give you that much difference. At bigger volumes, they do. I feel that the Marshall Code lacks some of the thickness that the Fender does at a louder volume, which is weird because Fender tube amps aren't really made for metal, but we'll get into that. So um, I've also got this little guy that wasn't mentioned in your thing. This is the Spark, and this is a great desktop amp. Um, and I've used it for little solo things, which is why it's in a bag right now because I had it for a solo thing that I did a little while ago. Um, there's absolutely no reason to have to trug around any of these bigger amps when all I have to do is trug that thing around and it fits, between the guitar and the and the back of the seat in the front when I'm driving to something. So, anyway, I got to be honest with you. My favorite modeling amp doesn't get made anymore, and that was the Mustang 3. And a lot of people liked the Fender Codex. It was a small Fender that did that. So anyway, if you're trying to go and you really don't know what pedals you want yet, and you're trying to find your way through this stuff, don't buy a bunch of pedals just because people on the internet said this pedal's great, this pedal's great, this pedal's great. You don't know what's going to be great in your rig with what you have. Okay? So their pedal might be great for them because it's what their amps or their ears hear. But I can tell you from years and years of experience, one person's ears hears things differently than another. So if you don't need all of the crazy stuff, the Fender GTX, the Marshall Code will do you just fine. So would a Spark. And that's if you're not going to play with other people. Now, I can tell you that the Marshall Code will not keep up with a band, not by a long shot. The Fender GTX 100 and the Marshall Code 100 will, but they'll also lose a lot that you're used to hearing when you're playing by yourself. And that's what those amps are really built to do, as much as they want to tout that they can play with a group. Now, for ones that you can play with other people, there's the Boss Katana 50 and 100. And the reason I recommend one of the two of them is because the 50 can do a lot of things that the 100 can do. The 100, if you can afford the little bit of extra money, and it's about $120 more, the 100 gives you that added punch. And it gets you up over if you need it, number one. And number two, it has a direct out that doesn't mute the speaker. If you use the direct out, which is actually a headphone out on the 50, mutes the speaker. You can't use it as a stage monitor while you send that over to a direct out to a PA. Number three, it has an effects loop. So if you do wind up adding pedals to it, you can't do that with the 50. You have to put them in front of the amp, which can sound like dog crap if you're using the amp's distortion. And number four, the Boss Katana 100 also gives you the ability to control it with a GAFC, which is a pedal that allows you to control 8 presets right there at your feet. You can switch between 4 presets in A and B. I used to put my cleans on, I used to go clean, and then boost, and then distorted and boost. And then on the B side, I had a different set of that same type of thing. It allowed me to get 4 different amps out of 1 amp. It's really versatile and it really works well. So if you can afford it, the Boss Katana 100, I have friends who play it with full bands, they play it by themselves. It's great because you can use the headphone out, mute the speaker because it's got a standby mode. There's nothing I can say about the Katana that's bad except it's bigger, takes up more space. But if you need a gigging amp and a practice amp, that's the one. If you can afford it, the Quilter. But the Quilter's $1,000 or more. Some of the Quilters go for $1,300. So that's kind of a pricey option. They are cool, and they're probably the closest thing you can get to a tube amp out there. But they're expensive. And lastly, there's your tube alternatives. Now, I've owned the Blackstar in the past. Tubes are not really meant for bedroom volume. Now, both the Blackstar HT series and the Marshall series of DSLs have a direct out where you can mute the speaker and you can play at bedroom volumes because you can use an external thing. I use Ableton Live, and I can use my computer and I can control my Marshall, which is right here. Okay. But I don't use the emulated out. I'm not crazy about it. It's a little muddy for me. I'm not a metalhead. I prefer, I've got a Captor X. That's a Torpedo Captor X. The lighting in here is crap and this camera is shit. But anyway, so I've got the 2 notes Captor X on there, and that goes to my DAW, which is over here that you can't see, into my computer, and I can do stuff with the amp, and because that works as a power soak, I can make the amp so quiet, I can play it so loud and so quietly, you would have trouble hearing it with this camera. That's how quietly I can make it, or quiet I can play it. And it also has a speaker out, so I can go right into the speaker and still allow the amp to push the speaker, and still take the DAW, and still use headphones. All of them. It's an incredible device, but it costs an extra $500, which makes this, this is a Marshall DSL-40. This makes this $750 amp a $1,200 amp with the Captor X, because it's $550. Well worth the money if you can afford it, if you can get one later. Here's the problem with all of this. If you don't want to have a pedal board, then you go ahead and get the Katana. That's the one I would recommend. But if you want the pedal board, then I would recommend a tube amp anyway, and get the code. Now I have a pedal board. I'm going to take this camera off here for a second and show you. I have a pedal board that's, I'll get this off here. So that's my Thor poster, by the way. So it's 10 feet. That's a 10-foot poster. So there's my 2. Oh, hi, the child. His name is Goga. There's my guitars. Now, I could have 40 Squiers, but I prefer to have a few. Those are Gibsons, Fenders, and a PRS. So anyway, going over here, this is my pedal board. Okay. Now, it doesn't really look like much, does it? To be honest, it's not the most complicated board you'd ever find. It does have a couple of pedals on there I don't need. I don't need a Univibe and a chorus and an MXR Phase 90. I mean, that's just kind of silly. But I like them because I like them. But that said, that pedal board, which doesn't look like much, I priced it out, and it's well over $1,000 in pedals. And those aren't expensive pedals. None of those pedals are expensive. Let me go back down there and show you. I say none of them. So on my pedal board, I had a Keeley Dark Side. I have a Peloton, a Leon Pelican Noiseworks 5050, which you can't find unless you can find it used. A Paisley Drive, which is only about $150. A Compressor Plus, which isn't expensive. I have 2 Compressor Pluses, 2 different reasons for the compressors. That's a Keeley Caverns, a tuner, chorus, the MXR, the Univibe, carbon copy. So I have a duplicity there too, and a slash wah. Anyway, and then underneath there, which you don't see underneath, is 2 power supplies because I have just enough pedals that there's not enough room on a single power supply, so I have 2. So what does all that mean? Well, the fact is that if you've got, I don't know what your rig is. If you've got a Squier and you're playing, get a less expensive rig. If you've got a Gibson Les Paul, get a more expensive rig. You paid money for the guitar. Get an expensive rig to show off the expensive guitar. You don't buy a Mercedes and then buy with leather seats and then get Skull and Crossbones Walmart seat covers. I hope. So that's my point. Get what works for you and do what's right for you. Don't worry about what other people do on the internet. They're not going to be able to answer your questions. I hope that what I gave you was just some enlightenment. Over the years, everybody finds their own path, and they get to this point. I've been playing since the mid-'70s in different rigs. I've been playing guitar since, I can remember. So somewhere around 69 or 70 is when I started playing guitar. So this didn't happen overnight. So you've got to find your own way. If you added up just my Marshall, just my captor, and just my pedals, don't even put a guitar into this. Don't put a cable into it. Don't put a string into it. I'm at almost $3,000, and then well over $2,000. And I haven't added a guitar into this mix. And you can go down a rabbit hole that sucks money like crazy, and then add the Fender. I didn't mention the Fender because they are not good for metal. And you said you were doing metal. That's a Fender Twin Tone Master. This thing will blow the doors out of this room. I cannot turn it up. I can't even use it at full wattage mode at low volumes in this room. You want to find the way you can go in your time and do what's best for you. So I hope that helped. This has been a long video, a little longer than I wanted. So again, also the Black Star. Don't forget the Black Star. That's a great one to try. Go somewhere, try it out, see what you think, and then go from there. Also, I didn't mention this, the PV 6505 Piranha heads are great if you can find yourself a little 1x12 or 2x12 cabinet. And the 5150s, if you can get one used, or the 6505 combos, those are great too. All of them do a wonderful job. PVs and Black Stars crush as far as metal goes. They're just incredible, great amps. I highly recommend them. I just don't play metal unless you've counted Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, which nowadays people don't call that metal anymore. So I get laughed out of the room with the metal guys. So anyway, I hope that helped. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.